Okay, so here we have the Schulvertrag, which is the school contract, or the Klassenvertrag, class contract, leading on to Regelverstoß, which is breach of school rules or breach of contract, and that obviously leads on to Konsequenzen for the students. So we'll just go through the 10 of them that I've written here. 1. Ich komme pünktlich in den Unterricht, habe meine Schulsachen dabei, ich störe andere nicht beim Lernen. So I come punctually to the lesson, I have my school materials with me, and I don't disturb other people in their learning process. 2. Jeder Schüler ist für seinen persönlichen Arbeitsplatz verantwortlich. Ich räume meinen Arbeitsplatz auf. So every student is responsible for his or her workplace, and I have to clean up my workplace after me. 3. Wir wollen alle zusammenhelfen, einen ordentlichen Schulbetrieb zu ermöglichen. Das gehört ein positives Schulklima und Toleranz. So we're all working, helping each other towards an orderly, disciplined school system, and that means a positive school climate and tolerance. 4. Jeder Schüler hat das Recht, in Ruhe zu arbeiten, zu lernen. Auch höflich sein, freundlich sein, wir helfen einander. So every student has the right to work and to study in peace or in quietness. Also, be polite, be friendly, and we help one another. 5. Wir befolgen die Anweisung der Lehrer und der Hausmeister. Wir beleidigen uns nicht. Okay, so we follow the instruction of the teacher and of the principal, and we don't, Beleidigung is kind of like insult each other, but we don't say bad things with each other, we don't disrespect each other, so on and so forth. So 6. Übung macht den Meister, die Meisterin aus dir. Okay, so practice makes perfect, name of the grammar book that we use, for the female ending as well. So 7. In der ganzen Schule gibt es Handyverbot. Das Kauen von Kaugummi ist nicht erlaubt. Mobbing is nicht erlaubt. So in the entire school there is ban on using phones, unless I suppose a teacher regulates using them under really restrictive usage. The chewing of chewing gum is not allowed, and bullying is not allowed. So 8. Die Toiletten sind nur zu Beginn und am Ende der Pause zu benutzen. Wir essen nicht während der Klasse. So toilets are to be used at the beginning, at the end of break. We don't eat in the classroom. 9. Jeder stellt seinen Stuhl auf den Tisch am Ende des Tages. Die Fenster werden geschlossen, das Licht wird ausgeschaltet. So everybody puts their stool, their kahir, their chair. Kahir is chair in Gaeilge, or the Irish language, on a table at the end of the day. Windows are closed and the light is turned off. Und 10. Gutes Verhalten wird belohnt. Du hast das Recht von Unterstützung vom Lehrer. So good behavior is rewarded. You have the right for support from the teacher. Okay, so from there we go on to the Regelverstoß. So breach of the contract. So instead of listing out ways in which students can breach the contract, which are too many, I've listed reasons why one would breach whatever rules you adopt in your classroom. So venir. So there's too little. So there has to be rules. Students need to know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Vernünftig. They have to be sensible. Logisch. They need to be logical. Verständlich. need to be understandable, positive, so they need to be positive, focusing on positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement. Durchsetzbar, very important that they need to be enforceable. You need to see the consequence, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, being transparent for all students. Verbindlich, they need to connect one with another, so there is cause and effect, that these rules aren't separate, they all form a piece of the puzzle towards a good, orderly classroom. Beobachtbar, they need to be observable, they need to be observable for students. Okay, so you need to be able to monitor them properly. Compatible, they're compatible with, again, ethos of the classroom, organisation of the classroom. Brauchbar, that they're needed. Again, that all leads into respect, having respect for the school process, having respect for learning, having respect for oneself. I find it handy to introduce certain type of rules bit by bit over the course of 2 or 3 classes into knowing the students instead of bombarding them up front and then presenting or having a discussion of Deutsch where possible, and depending on their level you can talk about modal verbs, you can talk about for example in number 9 the Umwelt, for number 4 you can talk about Gleichberechtigung, which is equal rights for senior cycle students. So again, you can play it off to each group you're using. Let's go into the Konsequenzen here. So we have the Schulvertrag, the Klassenvertrag, goes on to Regelverstoß, so there's a breach. I've explained possible reasons why. And the Konsequenzen. It's important to note, as I say, whenever there's a consequence, you make a written recording in the student's diary or any other system of notation that you're doing, so that if things happen or you're called into question down the line, that you have a list and a timestamp with date and time and event to validate your professional practice. So I've stated a Konsequenzen, logische Konsequenzen, logical consequences. Es kann notwendig sein, die Regeln zu lernen. So especially with students in the lower years, you have to train them and teach them about this type of contract. So instead of going straight in to the Bestrafung der Regelverstoß, you can set a week to adopt these type of rules, and then thereafter get really tough and say, okay, no more. We've gone through the training period. So normally I only give one chance thereafter, and after that then the student will get zusätzliche Hausaufgaben, so additional homework. The next time a discussion with me. Another discussion, then Nachsitzen, which is detention, and then a Lehrer-Eltern-Telefongespräch. So noting the fact that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've gone through 5 times in which we've asked the student to behave according to the school contract. So that's 5 written records that you would also have in your own personal diary and in the student's diary. Then the 6th one, if you go to the assistant's yearhead or someone, they hills the Klassenlehrer. So again, just to provide evidence that you've actually gone through the required discipline structure and exhausted various types of ends. As I say, this is 7, you can have more, whichever ones you want, and what we're going towards is what I have in circle in red, Selbstdisziplin. Selbstdisziplin, so the students are aware themselves, how to self-regulate themselves. And the motto that I adopt is Wir ruhmen uns unsere Schule. Wir ruhmen uns unsere Schule. We take pride in our school, and we take pride in anything You ultimately take pride in oneself.